Hi everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I have another scrapbook flip through for you. Today's layouts feature dies that will be dropped in October, and I'm really excited for them. There are some in here that a lot of you are going to be excited about. So let's go ahead and get started. First up is Craftsman. Craftsman is a level 1 die series. And they all pretty much have these features where there's this kind of diamond shape with these little triangles, and then there's these really nice lines cutting through the die. So this is an awesome one. This is the 3x3 size, and here I have a darker orange and a lighter orange, and then the rest of it is filled in with the same photograph. So this worked great because the waterfall was really far away and it fit perfectly in the square. And then you can see the rest of the scenery in the die cut. This is the 1x3. You can see it has a similar design, except it's a 1x3 and the triangles are a lot smaller. And then this is the 1x1. It looks exactly the same as the 3x3, just a lot smaller. And for this one, I just decided to fill in these squares to show different options on how you can fill them in. So Craftsman is awesome for outdoor pages. So if you like going in the outdoors, Craftsman can be an awesome one. And for level 1 dies, really any dies, can be as simple or as complex as possible. So you can fill them in how you want. You can keep it really easy and just put one pattern paper behind the Craftsman die cut or fill it in with different things. So that will take a little more time, but I want you to know that these dies can be filled in really easily, or you can take more time to fill them in with different photos and colors. All right, this layout was made by Jody. She just used the 1x3 here. And this layout shows her son when he got married, and Craftsman was a great feature for a masculine layout. It has these really nice details with the lines here, and I love how she added this gold paper and these centers here. So really nice. If you're looking for a die that fits with more masculine pages, Craftsman is a really good one. I know it can be more difficult to find masculine things for scrapbooking. So if you have a lot of sons and grandsons you want to scrapbook for, Craftsman could be great, and it can be used for their rustic camping adventures. But you can see here Jody used it for a wedding layout, and I think it looks amazing. Up next, we have another layout from Jody. This one shows the 2x4 size and the 2x2. And I love this layout. This is a Christmas layout. I think she did such a great job putting in these little striped paper pieces where the square centers are, because it looks like little peppermints on her layout. So this could be a fun one for Christmas pages just for that. If you have some peppermint striped paper, this will be awesome. And of course she has green in the triangular sections to be a nice complement for this red, and also if it's the Christmas theme. And then she cut the actual Craftsman outline with a brown and has this pattern paper behind it that's really, really cute. These 3 sizes are big enough. You can see the pattern paper really well with all the little gingerbread cookies. It's really cute. So this was an unexpectedly great one for the holiday season. So definitely try this die out for Christmas pages. And here is the last one. It's a 2-page spread that I love. It's another outdoorsy one. It's also Southwest. Craftsman is great for Southwest pages. So here, behind all of the Craftsman dies on this layout, I put in these photos of petroglyphs that were in the area. Plus I have this orange paper and this sort of, I don't know, it's kind of like a darker seafoam green. It's a greenish color. And then I have this light sandy cardstock for the outline. And this turned out really, really good. I think Craftsman was perfect for this trip. So I have another 3x3 here and little 1x1s, which I decided to just add the orange to make it quicker, because these are a lot smaller and takes a little more time to fill them in. So that is the benefit of getting something like the 3x3, is that because it's so much bigger, you're going to have an easier time filling these in with different colors. So that's something to keep in mind versus the smaller ones. That'll take you a little more time, not a ton more time, but it can be a little tricky sometimes to keep track of those little triangles. Over here, I have the 2x5, which is also pretty big. I love it. I'll show you close up. So it makes those 3 orange diamond sections, and I still continued with the green paper and have the petroglyphs that show behind there. So if you use a photo, definitely use a cardstock that contrasts that really, really well. So this layout is awesome because of the amazing contrast, because the photos are pretty dark. So having a lighter color really helped it stand out. But I really love these. I think they're very, very attractive. So up next, the rest of these dies are going to be level 3. So in October, we will not have any level 2 dies, but we have some really exciting level 3 dies coming. So maybe you recognize this one. This one is the dynamic die set. So there's different ways to use the dynamic die set. So I have some pages that show different layouts you can create with them. So this one has the 4x4 and 2x4 sizes, and there is space to have these diamonds here, and you don't have to put in the diamonds. I think I have some other examples where it doesn't have those diamond pieces. So it's optional, but it looks really neat on the layout to add in those diamond sections. This layout is unique because each section shows a different season. So this is a nice story idea for your layout. If you are like me and you like the different seasons, making a page like this is a lot of fun. All right, this layout was made by Jody. This one has the dynamic 4x4 and 1x4. I really like on this layout how each section kind of looks like a frame. So the photos are being framed. And this doesn't have a lot of photos, but your second layout for a 2-page spread could have more. And these could be like your 4 main photographs. So for wedding, it was nice to have the bride and groom and then their families and the other photographs. And it's a really nice way to show pattern paper in the 1x4. So if you are a pattern paper fan, this can be a good one. Although I'd make sure the patterns are small enough that you can see them really well in the 1x4 sizes. But this is a really nice one. This one has kind of these little diamond sections too, all around the layout. So this one is really fun. All right, here's another idea with dynamic. So here I used a 2x4 and 1x4. So the square sections were just made with the basic die bundle. And I really like the 1x4 in these sections because it kind of looks like it's framing the center here. And then you have these little 2x4 sections to show more photos. And in case you're wondering, this is not a pattern paper. This is actually a photo taken at Universal Studios, and I printed multiple of them to go around my layout, but it looks really cool. You could use one pattern paper or find a photo that could be in place of a pattern paper and it will look really cool. But this is a really neat one. This one was made by Jody. This to me is the classic dynamic design. It has the 4x4 in the center here, the 2x4 and the 1x4 rotating around the layout. This page has some really nice contrast. I really like how, really if you look at all these photos, they have that red painted wood, even here a little bit. And then if you look at the photos in these diamond sections, it's mainly green because there's a lot more grass. And so that was a great contrast from these other photographs. So that's something to keep in mind with dynamic, is considering what photos you put here and do they contrast the other photos you put around the layout. So I think that'll make it a lot more attractive. And then in these sections, she shows some of the scenery, and even here, I really like how instead of a pattern paper in this section, she shows a photo. So that's a really nice touch. I like how it's cropped with the dynamic dies. And of course, she has this nice simple brown of pattern paper, which gives your eye a break from all the photographs. But I really like this one. I think it's really appealing. It has great contrast. All right, here's another one from Jody. This one has the 4x4 and 2x4. Again, the diamonds are rotating around the layout, and I thought these photos were perfect for dynamic. This was at a lavender farm, And so in each of these little sections, she shows some close-ups of the lavender. So there's these really nice purple photos. And then she shows in these corner sections some of the landscape around the farm. And then in these 4 sections, she was able to show photos of her family and then show details from the farm in the diamond sections. So it's really pretty. I think this worked out really well because there's this grid paper. This is from her happiness collection. It has blue and purple, and then the lavender went perfectly with it. And altogether, this is a nice, soothing layout. The photos look really nice with dynamic hair. All right, this one I actually have a video of. I show in the video how to make a panoramic design. So hopefully you can tell that this looks like one big photo, not these parts. These are 3 different photos, but through here in these corners, I have it look like it's one big photo. So that is something you can do. It will take you a little more time to piece it together, but it could be a cool project. I think it's good to challenge yourself once in a while, and if you don't have a lot of time, maybe that's not the project to do, but if you want a challenge, I highly recommend watching that video. I will put it in the corner up here so you can go check it out. But each section, this top one, the middle, and down here are a panorama of this area. So again, that is something you can do, and it looks really cool in the end. This one was made by Jody, and she actually did something interesting here. So we also have a 4x6 size, and so she was able to piece it together to show different sizes here. So we have the 2x4, 1x4 as well, and then down here there's the 4x4. So you can spend some time piecing these together in a variety of different ways to create unique designs. And here she has 2 different pattern papers, which I think helped. I think if it was all one pattern paper, and it may depend on the pattern paper, I think there would not have been enough contrast and maybe would have felt too busy. But because of the 2 different pattern papers, I think it doesn't feel too overwhelming with pattern paper. But you will have to experiment and see what you prefer. But you can actually have a lot of fun with the dynamic dies. And again, piece them together in different ways you may not expect. All right, this one is really cool. It's one of my favorite pages. This just is a really simple design. This has the dynamic 2x4 and 1x4. And what I did was I took a panoramic shot of the mountains. These are the Blue Ridge Mountains. And this one shows the scenery where it's a little bit lighter. You can see a lot more yellow, and it has brighter lighting. And then on the outside, it's also scenic photos, but they were darker. You might be able to see there is some mist going on in there. So I was able to create contrast because I have a darker lighting in these photos and these photos are lighter. So this is something cool you can do. This is not something you'll be able to do all the time, but if you do go somewhere like the mountains or somewhere else scenic, this could be a really cool project for you. And because the 2x4, these pieces are bigger, this would not be a very difficult panorama to put together fairly quickly. And of course, it's important to have a cardstock color for the frame part that'll contrast the rest of the layout. So you can see here, this layout, it's very, very brown, very natural colors, and even the photos through here. So I went with a light teal blue so it would stand out and still fit with the fall theme. All right, here is the last dynamic layout for today. This one was made by Jody. This is the 4x6, the 2x4 and 4x4, and I really like this one because she was able to piece these together to make a rotational design. And then in the middle here, she has this pattern paper with a saying that just says, "What a lovely day." I think that's a really nice contrast because there's a lot going on through the rest of the layout. So it's nice to have something a lot more simple in the middle here. And here she really did keep this layout simple. I mean, the same pattern paper is used through the entire thing, and then she filled these in with the blue as well. And she was still able to fill in these sections with the diamond photo. So altogether, this is a nice fall layout. And again, you can piece these dies together in unexpected ways. Up next is the Gable dies. Maybe you recognize these, but these ones are awesome. Gable is a level 3 die set, and what is nice is there are not a lot of small pieces. I know some of you are getting tired of piecing together dies like from X Factor or whatever, but if you're looking for something a little more simple and doesn't have a lot of those little pieces, Gable is fantastic. And this is one layout idea. I'm going to be showing multiple ways you can put the Gable dies together. But this is one. This is a nice little farm layout, and on the top and bottom I just filled it in with the pattern paper, which there is a lot of space, so it was perfect to put this pattern paper in. You can see there's a lot of characters, so it was important for me to put these in a larger space than usual. So Gable allowed me to use a lot more pattern paper, which is awesome. And I have this red pattern paper, but it's a lot more simple comparatively. This could go with a lot of dies. So if you have a pattern paper with a lot more going on and you want to use a second pattern paper, I definitely recommend using one that is way less busy so you don't overwhelm your layout. And Gable does come with layering sizes. So you can fill the section with the photo, or you can choose to layer them. So adding in the layering dies allowed me to add a second pattern paper, and I think that paper helps the photos pop a bit more than if I didn't use it as well. So this is a really fun one. So this is the same layout design, but I wanted to show this one because instead of pattern paper, it is filled with photos. So this is kind of like a panoramic shot, and then you have 3 different photos. I love that little bird. But you have 2 different bird photos, and then Tammy actually made this one, and she was able to fill in this photo, which something like that can be more difficult with a level 3 die, but Gable, she was able to fit it in. So one little thing I'll tell you is if you go to the beach, it's really easy to make a message in the sand and use that as the journaling for your layout. So just a fun tip. If you like going to the beach a lot, that's really easy. And in these sections, she did not use the layering die. So this would have been a very quick layout to put together. Obviously, she would have had to plan out which photos to put in, but cutting wise, this would have gone really quickly. This layout was made by Jody, and so this direction I call the hourglass. You can see the hourglass kind of design here. So you can turn the Gable dies different ways and it will give you different results. So she actually did a lot of layering dies here for the bigger sections and the smaller sections. So she has, it's kind of a solid pattern paper. It's technically pattern paper, but you can't really tell. And then she has a busier pattern paper here. So the layering dies can be handy if you want to put in more pattern paper. And then in these sections, instead of adding photos, she added this fun pattern paper with some words on it just to add something a little bit different. So this is a really nice layout. I don't think it looks too busy. So again, Gable die is a level 3. That is a lot more simple to use. I think a lot of you will like Gable. All right, so with Gable, you can just fill half the page with them and it looks like a little barn. So of course, I had to make this page with an actual barn layout. This was done at a zoo and they have a section with a little barn here. You can see it here. So of course this was perfect for that. So you can just have half of the Gable design and it really emphasizes that kind of barn or house looking shape. So this was a really fun one. And Jody made this one. I love this one because this reminds me of a ski lodge. So if you like to go skiing or go to the mountains in the wintertime, this is a really cool one. Or maybe you're going to somewhere like Yellowstone or somewhere outdoors and you stay in a lodge. This could be a great one too. And this one's actually really simple. She has 2 different pattern papers and just has the photos here. It actually can help the photos stand out more if you don't have any in these top sections. So again, this is a really fun one. I hope you guys can try that if you get the Gable dies. So I have 2 more pages with Gable and I wanted to show the arrow option. So this one kind of looks like a down arrow. So here I have photos and then a little bit of pattern paper. I wanted to break things apart So that way it would emphasize this arrow shape a little bit more. So another thing about Gable, here you can see I added in these letters. So this place is the spiral jetty. It's actually this, it was made by an artist who went out here and he actually made this spiral. And then I have these photos here, and what's cool about the 2x4 is you can crop your photos. So it was really nice to crop my photos so you can see this lizard a lot better. You can see he's a very similar color as the rock, so I like that we can crop in a little bit better so that way he doesn't get lost. And then I have some of the landscaping down here. So this is a really fun layout. This one was made by Jody, but instead of going down, the arrow is going this way. This is a nice fall layout. She has this cocoa grid paper, which is very dark, and the Gable dies were cut with ivory or kind of like an off-white paper. So that was a really good contrast with the cocoa. And here she actually has this cinnamon paper and then a plaid paper, pumpkin, and then cinnamon again. So that's something you can do, is maybe you could have cinnamon, pumpkin, something like that. You can have a lot of fun. It looks like here she used layering dies for all of her photos, but she even used the layering die for this little pattern paper piece. So yes, this little area does have its own layering piece, but it is really small. Tammy probably provided it, so like in this case, Jody has the layering dies on the top and bottom, and that way you could have something to match that as well. Even though it is tiny, I don't know how often you're gonna put a photo there, but it is there if you want everything to stay consistent. All right, so these were the Gable dies. I think they're awesome. Again, they're very simple to use, so I think a lot of you will enjoy Gable. Next, I'm showing pages with the Frontier dies. So this is a really fun one. This one was made by Jody, and really what made this layout was her photos. These were taken in Canada, and you can see it was very pretty. And so you can't really go wrong using these photos, right? But Frontier is a 4x6 die. So you'll get this outline, and it has a diamond center, and it does come with the layering die if you want to use that. There's these little triangle pieces, and then there's these square sections that are cut off in one of the corners in each section. So there's different ways you can fill in Frontier dies, but on this layout, Jody used a pinwheel design. So 4 of them are going around the layout. I really like this here. She added a sticker and said moosing around. Thought that was fun. So that's a nice contrast from the die sections. Something I want to point out about Frontier that you may not notice immediately is, so let's look up here. So even though these are in a rotational design, the lines actually do align. This would technically align with that, but Tammy did make it so everything would align even when it rotates around the layout. So this would ideally align as well. So that's a really cool effect, which is really nice. That way the lines are not looking really awkward or anything like that. Altogether, this is a great layout. The photos really make it, and it's nice to have a contrast with this diamond and the pattern paper there as well. So this is a really good one. All right, this is another rotational design, although it's going the other way around. This one actually shows the 2x2 Craftsman dies, so I snuck that in there. I put in this little bear pattern paper, and with the Craftsman, the triangles I just kept black like the outline, so that's something you can do. So little fun moment with the Craftsman right there. But again, I have the Frontier. Now this time, each of these sections was filled in with a different photo. So this is a great die if you want to add a lot of photos on a layout, so you can get a lot of those details in, and then these can be your main photographs. So this is a really cool idea. And I have pattern paper in the diamond sections a little bit here. If you really like adding a lot of photos to layout, Frontier may be a good one for you. All right, here is a really simple layout with Frontier. On this layout, Jody mainly used the basic die bundles, and then Frontier's just in the center. So Frontier is considered a level 3 die, but it can be used in a level 1 way, is the best way I could put it. This is a nice simple frame, So she has these photos here with the landscape, and then there's a main photo here in the diamond. So Frontier, you actually can go really simple as well. You don't have to make the layouts like I showed before. You can stick to something like this, and especially if it's your first time using it. So Frontier really is a very nice frame you can use very easily. So this layout is kind of similar. It's basically just two different sections. So for this layout, I have one photo wrapping around the middle. For this one, I believe I used a 5x7 photograph. So this area is too big for 4x6. So you could use a couple of 4x6 photos and try to piece it together. I thought it was easier to just go ahead and print a 5x7 to get this effect. So I really like the lines going through here. And of course, with something like this, really important to choose a cardstock that's very contrasting against your photos. And then of course you have the diamond section here to show things like people or other things you want to highlight as well. Again, dynamic is also very masculine, like Craftsman. So I know it could be harder to find masculine embellishments and things like that. So Frontier is a really good one for that as well. All right, this is the last die set I am showing today, but it's a really exciting one. This one is Spiro, and I'm starting off with the more simple designs, and then we'll show the really exciting spirograph looking designs. But this set was made with the 3x3 size, so there's a 3x3 and a 3x6. So the 3x3 is going to create 4 different sections, and you can fit a circle cropped photo in the center. This was a really fun one. This is actually a photograph in these corners of a mural, and I did something a little unique here. So this is the same paper, and I have the journaling wrapping around here, but you can see I have this lighter color as the outlines in these corners, but then I put it in these sections, and then on these ones it's the pink paper, and so it's kind of swapping that for a really neat effect. So Spiro is really awesome because you're going to get a lot of cool effects, and this one's really simple. It's just swapping out the colors a little bit differently, but I think it looks really cool to have the lighter paper here and the pink paper there. Looks really cool. This one was made by Jody. This one shows the 3x6 option. So you're just going to need 2 different die cuts. This one looks really nice. She has this nice blue paper, and then she has these floral photos, and then in the center she has her daughter here with a very similar blue as this pattern paper, and then just a nice portrait shot that was cut with a layering die that comes in the set. So Spiro can be used for really, really fun layouts, but I also love this one. I think Spiro is a great die if you are making pages for teenagers or young adults. I think they would really like that because it is really cool. It has these really cool effects. I can't see someone around that age group not liking this die. So yeah, I think Spiro is awesome, even when you just keep it simple. I wanted to show this layout because you can combine the 2x6 size, which is here, with the 3x3 as well for something a little bit different. So here I pretty much use the same pattern paper throughout it, and I have this white paper for the journaling, and you can see where it's broken apart right here. So it's just something different you can do. So if you're using one or the other more, you can decide to make it a little more interesting and have both of them on a layout for just something a little bit different and unique. All right, here's where we're going to start getting into the fun overlapping. So this here also shows the Spiro 3x6 and the 3x3s, but in this section, they overlap. So you can do that with Spiro dies. Basically, the frame was glued, like someone might have made this section and then stacked this other section on top. I hope that makes sense. So you have one 3x3 section here and then another one stacked on top of it to create this unique effect. So this is with the 3x3 size. This is going to be, in my opinion, if you want to get into the overlapping with the Spiro dies, this is the first idea to go with, because it's going to be a lot easier to just have this one little section. And it is nice to just, you get 2 Spiro circle sections, and then you have space for some extra photos in the other corners here. So this is really nice layout made by Jody. I recommend going with this one if you're first starting Spiro and you want to get into that overlap effect. All right, next I have 3 layouts, and they are the same layout, but they are a little bit different. And this one, well, let me show you. Here I have the paper that goes in the ring, like half ring sections, overlapping. Here is this one. This one is just the spiral outline, and we have our grid template. Our grid template allows you to draw the grid lines on any 12 by 12 sheet of paper. We also have the grid template in 8.5 by 11 and grid card sizes, but Spiro is going to work best with the 12 by 12 size paper. So I didn't have to cover up the lines with the template. Now, if you don't have the template, you can still do this, but you would have to find a way to cover the lines. But if you like this effect, I highly recommend getting the grid template, which a lot of people are loving because it's nice to be able to draw the grid lines on any paper you would like. And this was really complex. So I will link a video for this kind of Spiro die page in the description below. This video is not on YouTube, it is on our website. And on the website, everything is ad free, so you don't have to worry about ads on the website, which is why we start putting more of our videos more on our website, mosaicmoments.com. So this one has these paper areas, these paper half rings is what I call it, but main overlapping you see is the actual outline of the Spiro die cut frame. So I would say this is the more complex way to do it. I had to stick it down and then put these in and then put it down, and yeah, it's quite a process. There is going to be a calming video demo that shows the overlapping effect as well. I think it's going to be more like this one. The video was made by junior designer Caitlin. It's coming out later this month. So if you are curious how to create that kind of design, a calming video is coming to show you how to do it. But also go check out the Spiro webpage on mosaicmoments.com that also shows you that process. So anyway, this is more complex, but it's really cool. I have 2 different pattern papers and some crazy overlapping. Look at that. It's awesome. It's really cool. So Spiro is definitely the one if you are an adventurous scrapbooker. This will be for you. And again, this one was pretty easy because I used the grid template. So I only drew in the lines I needed and I didn't have to worry about covering up the grid lines. And so this is going to be the most simple way to do the overlap effect with the Spiro dies. So, and by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, this is all the 3x6 size. So none of these show the 3x3. So if you want this really complex look, you would use the larger Spiro die. So if you have the grid template at home, I actually recommend doing this first, where you draw the grid lines in the grid template and you're not worried about filling the other parts in to cover up the grid lines. And this layout was made by Jody. This one looks awesome. What I love about this one is she has this fish paper, and what happened was she didn't have enough paper. And so she used the back of our summer grid. This is actually our board shorts grid paper. It's the back of it. And so it turned out really good. I just love, so it was sort of an accident. It was meant to be fish all around, which would have been really cool also to have this fish paper all the way around. But I really like this too. And she has this really, really neat, it almost looks like the paper is braided. So, or making a knot, something like that. So that is another effect you can do. And this one's gonna be a little bit easier than this one, I would say. So really, really cool. I'll mention one more time, a calming video of how to do this is coming later this month. And please go check out the Spiro webpage to go ahead and see a tutorial on how to do this. All right, we have reached the end of today's video. So to recap, we have the Spiro Dies coming in October. We also have the Frontier dies coming. We have Gable coming. I love Gable. We have Dynamic, which Dynamic has, I think out of this entire group, Dynamic has been around the longest. So this is kind of a classic. But if you're new to Mosaic Moments, this will be new to you. So Dynamic is a really fun one if you really like diamonds. And last, we have the Craftsman dies, which the Craftsman dies are great if you are a beginner to Mosaic Moments. These are just level 1. So they're really just meant to be a nice embellishment on your layout. Anyway, I hope all of you are excited. Let me know in the comments below which of these dies you are the most excited about. And let me know if you have used them and which one you would recommend for someone who's just getting started with Mosaic Moments. Anyway, I hope to hear from a lot of you in the comments, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.